And one of the greatest poem by Zhi Yi also set up 2 tents in his courtyard in order to welcome his guests. Let's take a look what's inside the tent. So I'm just saying that we want to take a look at the tent.
Oba çadırı eski Osmanlı'yı tanıtıyoruz burada.
It says that this is an Ottoman style tent. It's from the previous time, so there is a culture festival here. That's why we are presenting this tent. Bu pamuktan mı, yünden mi, neden oluşturulmuş?
Normal örme, pamuktan bu.
Pamuk cotton.
他说呢，这个帐篷呢是奥斯曼的风格，但是奥斯曼呢也是从以前。
So this tent is actually the style of the Ottoman Empire. For the main structure of the tent is made of a cotton fabric. At the top of the tent, you can see the lights can shade in.
Bu iki türlü bir kışlık bir yazlık. Kış oldu mu onu kapatıyoruz yağmur içeri girmesin diye. Yazında onu havalandırma olarak kullanıyoruz. İçeri serin olsun diye.
Yes, you can do it. Actually, we use this for different season, for different style. For the winter, you can see that it has to be this one to keep it warm inside the tent. In the summer, we take it off to make it cooler inside the tent.
哦，它这个设计还挺精巧的，就顶上的这个。
This design is very exquisite.
它一方面可以透光，另外一方面。
For the top part, on one side, we can absorb the sunlight, and in winter, we can actually cover this top, so can keep the whole tent warm. And in summer, it is quite ventilated.
Burası tarihteki tarihi bir çadır o zaman.
Aynen öyle. Bizim de burada ipek böceğimiz var. İpek böceğimiz.
这个呢是这个是典型的一个奥斯曼风格的帐篷。然后呢，他说。
And for this one is a traditional style of the Ottoman Empire. And now he just showed me something special. That is the silk worm. And also they have a special equipment to reel the silk from the silkworm.
Gördüğünüz gibi buradan sarıyoruz. Şallar elde ediyoruz. İpek şal.
İpek şal. 啊，他刚才呢这个刚才有个小伙子呢给我们介绍了，简单介绍了他是。
So the gentleman just briefly introduced how they reel the silk and how they made a scarf from the silk. He said that first of all we have to boil the cocoon of the silkworm, and then we have this equipment, the reel, to draw out the silk. So first of all, boil the cocoon, and then we start to reel this equipment in order to draw out the silk gradually. It looks very familiar. For the whole process of the silk reeling, it's actually the same as what we did in ancient times in China.
ticaret amaçlı kullanıldığı için artık olabilir yani. Onun ihtimali. Eski İpek yolu vardı.
He said that because of our cities on the top of the on the way of the Silk Road from previous time, it might happen. It might that comes from China because at that time there was a trade road, so we were on that road, so it might be. He says.
这位先生呢，他说他的老家在哈泰，是一个
The gentleman just said that
重要的节点。
he's from Hatay. It's actually one of the key stops from the ancient Silk Road. And he said probably it is at that time this kind of technology has been passed from China.
我们刚才感谢了一下他对我们的介绍，然后我们现在
We just say thank you to them and we move up to other tents to see what's happening out there.
文化传统，除了这个帐篷，还有这个丝之外，我们看这边这个
We just see the tent and the silk railing, and now we see some of the copperware displayed in this store.
这些东西呢都是用这个铜做的。
These are made of copper.
我们现在看到这些呢都是这个手工打制。
And all of these artifacts are actually made from hand.
Original color.
Bu rengi gitmesin diye önce kalayla kapalıyor. Bu parlak olanlar da nikelaş. Yani kaplama olmalı ki takvimin rengi solmasın
Okay.
ve kullanabilirsin.
This is the original color, and
那
after
个就
this,
是原始的颜色，原始的颜色就是
So for the color is actually the original color
它
of the
经过
copper.
加工之后，what happened？
But after some processing, this looks more polished.
not to lose this original color easily. So to keep the original color, we need to do this.
OK，所以它那个就那个黄铜，如果是黄色的话，
So for that yellow browns,
颜色可能就
if we did not do any treatment or polishing, and then the color may fade.
把它变成这样。
That's why they will use special
然后经过
techniques,
打磨呢，就
and
会
then
这样
to shine the color.
非常闪亮的，
After further polishing,
就
and
是
the copperware looks very shining.
奢华的感觉。Sir, how much is this for one piece usually？ 像这个土耳其茶壶呢，这样一套是150里拉。
So for this kind of tea set, it is around 150 riyal, the local currency.
This is one day, for example. Büyük güzel polishing. This takes 1 week, for example, and it's 600 Turkish lira. The prices.
像这种手工制的这个铜制品还挺
For this kind of handmade copperware, it actually consumes a lot of time. And it takes them around 2 hours to make such a teapot. But for this one, if we have some patterns carved on this kind of copper, it will take them a day to make it. And for this hollow style of the plates, it takes them around like 1 week to finish that. So it is very important decoration for the Turkish daily life, especially for those copperwares. And we see them anywhere on the streets of Turkey. And these kind of teapots are used to contain special juice or beverage of Turkey. And for this one, it's more delicate. Even a small piece, you can see so many different colors are integrated. And she just explained to me that for the color, they add the color later on after they complete the model. You can see some of the color are the original color of the browns, and some of them are in ink color. And for the white color, it's actually made from silver. So for this one, it's actually an alloy from a brass as well as the silver. All of these are traditional handicraft from Turkey. Let's take a look on the other tents. For the cultural festival this year, it was founded by the local government. So for different regions of Turkey, they will send out delegations to attend this event, and they will show their local specialties in this event. By organizing this kind of festival, the government wants to promote the culture of Turkey. Currently, we can see a rapid development of the modern society. Few people are familiar with the traditional lifestyle. That's why the Turkish government wants to promote their traditional culture. Speak of Turkey, it is inherited from the Ottoman Empire, and they are actually part of the Turkic peoples. And the ancestors of the Turkic people are actually from Huns. So long time ago, Turkey has a relation with China. We have just visited some of the traditional handicrafts. Now let's take a look at other pieces. We see some potteries and a ceramics here. Let's ask him how they make a porcelain. It feels like it is very similar for the technique of making the ceramics.
Atelier he helped them to open, and hundreds of people he educated about this occupation.
看来这个师傅应该是很有经验了，他已经做了有。
It looks like he's very experienced in this. He has been doing this for around 38 years, and he owns over tens of stores and also hundreds of students for making the ceramics. He said that for this technique is coming from Central Asia.
Selçuks conquered Kütahya and they brought this art with them. So first they came to the Kütahya. Evet. And he's telling.
Sorry. 这个师傅说呢，说这个做瓷器的这个技艺啊，原来也是从
And he just told us that the technique is also coming from the Central Asian countries. And later on, this kind of technique passed to his hometown, and then passed further to the Western Asian countries.
Says that after Ottoman start using this art, but the difference is in Kütahya, every ordinary people might know that was a public art, but in Ottoman they use this like a palace art. So that's the difference.
这个师傅说呢，这个瓷器原来在奥斯曼帝国时期啊是。
And he just told us that for this kind of potteries, only royal families they can use this kind of technology and the ceramics. But later on, when this kind of technology passed on to his hometown, more and more people get familiar of how to make the ceramics. And for the porcelains and the ceramics are very important in Turkey. All of these handicrafts are very delicate and beautiful. And we all know that Chinese is well known for its blue and white porcelain in Ming and Yuan dynasty. And except for China, actually Turkey is one of the countries that hold the most blue and white porcelain from Ming and Yuan dynasty of China. And in the 50s of last century, one of the American authors said that in the Topkapi Palace in Turkey, there were hundreds of porcelains from China that was displayed in Turkey's museum. And for the number of porcelain that was exhibited in the Museum of Turkey, actually most of them are selling to the Islamic countries. So except for China, Turkey owns the most of the collections of blue and white porcelains in the palace. And in China, we have around 200 to 300 blue and white porcelains. And just in Turkey, in the Topkapi Palace, it exhibits around 40 to 50 pieces. And because of this, some of the experts from China paid a special visit to Turkey to take a look at the blue and white porcelain that was exhibited in Turkey.
Sıfırdan, çamurdan başlayarak, hamurdan 22 aşamadan sonra vitrine geçiyor ki onun için müzayedelere konu olan bir sanatımız. Seramik dünyasındaki çini sanatı transparan ve sıcak renklere sahip olmasından dolayı ve el işi olması.
Bu hale geldi. 22 aşamadan sonra kaç günde geldi?
Yaklaşık 15 gün.
He says that it takes 22 step in the process. So,
这个师傅说你如果要做一个完整的瓷器的话，一共需要22
He said if you want to make a porcelain, it takes him around like 22 procedures.
it's, for example, this takes 15 days, but each material has different days, to complete.
师傅说从这个粘土开始。
So from collecting the clay and to the finished products, it takes around 15 days to make it. And we know China is well known for the porcelain. I just want to ask him if this piece of art have any relation with China.
Kütahya seramik sanatıyla Çin seramik sanatı arasında bağlantılar var mıdır sizce? Bir iletişim ya da ilişki var mıdır geçmişten bugüne?
Zaten hepimiz bizim inancımıza göre Hazreti Adem'in çocuklarıyız. Ve seramik de bizim inancımıza göre insanlığın mayası toprak. Dünyanın ortak kültürü zaten bu.
In my opinion, I believe that, and we believe that this is our common history and ancestry, and this art also is our common art that we share in the world.
这个师傅说，师傅说这个他相信。
And he just told us that he believed for the technique of making the ceramics, these are the common technique from the ancestries. Very interesting.
Besides what I just said to you, that this is our common art culture. He says this we call this design as a China concept. This represents the power of the Ottoman that he took it and spread it to the 3 continents. You know, and they call this China Temani.
我们看这个非常常在土耳其这个瓷器里面非常常见的一个图案。
And let's see the common one, the common pattern here, with 3 half moons. And for this pattern, when back to the Ottoman Empire, and actually it is a concept of China. It represents the 3 continents that was ruled by the Ottoman Empire. I want to understand the meaning of each one of them.
That Ottoman conquered and ruled during that time, and inside it has Christians. You see this shape, so means that how Ottoman Empire is strong in over those 3 continents.
那么设计这个图案呢，就是为了显示奥斯
And for the design of this pattern,
多么的强大。我们在
it is just one to show what a powerful state it was for the Ottoman Empire. Actually, we see a lot of different patterns. For example, the national flower, the tulip of Turkey, on this vase,
16的造型，就是在土耳其
and also for this one,
跟咱们中国一样也是
is the pomegranate. Also represents prosperity of the nation.
This also tulip.
O da bizim inancımızda Hazreti Muhammed Aleyhisselam'ı temsil ediyor.
This is a flower we call panch. He said it's not tulip, and represent Prophet Muhammad in.
OK。那么这些瓷器呢？
Genç 5 demek, 5 tane onun bölmesi vardır. Muhammed Aleyhisselam'ın getirdiği 5 savun, salat, hac, zekat, kelime-i şehadet getirmek. Yani İslam'ın şartını temsil eder.
You want me to translate this? It's kind of Islamic. Okay. So it's a different flower. It's not a tulip.
那么这个花呢？这个瓷器传到了这边之后呢，他们也产生了。
So when ceramics come to Turkey, they have made their own decoration.
这个花呢，就是
For example, this one,
真的这个伊斯兰教的
a special flower, actually represents Islam.
我们现在看这个大师呢，他在上面刻了一个鱼的图案。
Now we can see he just carved a fish on this vase.
Prosperity, cleanness, good, freedom.
Osmanlı'nın en büyük galesi de Yaradana Allah'ın kendi ait
He says that Ottoman Empire used so many also tulips representing the Islam, God.
在这个师傅呢说，这个鱼的图案呢象征着清洁。
And he just told us, and the fish just represents purity and the cleanness.
Thank you very much for this
Zaten
information.
bir insan temiz ve berrak safsa zenginlik ona verilir zaten. Biz buna inanırız.
You know what? He made a connection. He said, if you are clean and good person, like I said, what is fish represent? The rich wellness and richness comes to that person.
Ruh zenginse insan zengin.
If the soul is
Yes,
rich,
yes.
the people is rich.
You are
Ama
right.
insan zengin, ruh fakirse hep fakirdir o.
If,
You are right.
Yeah.
You are right. Thank you.
çok teşekkür ederiz. Çok
Thank you.
sağ olun.
这个师傅说，我刚才跟他说呢，这个价钱。
And I just told him that in fish in China it actually represents rich and fortune. And indeed, he said that if your soul is clean and good, just as the meaning of the Turkish meaning of fish, then the fortune will come to you. But if you have a lot of money, you're a rich man, but you're quite humble, you're not very good in your soul, that it doesn't make any sense for you.
当时这个民族的他们在典型的这个农家的场景，我们又看到了这个就是
This is a scene of a typical farmland. And we see the reel again, which used to draw out the silk.
我们先去那边看，那边有那个土耳其他们的传统的
We want to go to another site
织布的这个工艺。
to see some of the technique in the spinning.
就看到这个呢，我就想到了在其实国内有好多这种传统的印染坊。
When I see this, I also think of in China there are many textile printing and dyeing workshops. Let's take a look what they have.
没有中式就是有一个那个颜料，那好吧。这个人呢，这个看来是这边的一个算主人吧。
So it seems like he's the owner of this area.
Nedir? Neyi gösteriyorsunuz burada?
Bizim bu halı kültürü çok eski zamanlara dayanıyor. Oğuzlardan beri geliyor. Biz bu kültürü dağda yün kesilip otlanan koyundan yün kestikten sonra oradan alıyoruz. Dövüyoruz yünü, eğiriyoruz. Kök boyalarla, doğadan topladığımız bitkilerle renklendiriyoruz kaynatarak. Birazdan biz yakacağız şeyimizi.
Tamam, onu ben anlatayım. He says that we are representing here to show how the carpet comes from previous times, and we show that how we give them color, and we are making the carpet for the last complete shape.
这个展位呢，果然就是他们来展示这个印染还有织
So what
造这个
there here is actually on how to make carpet.
how do you color this
Bunu nasıl renklendiriyorsunuz?
doğadan topladığımız güzel natural malzemeler.
From the natural herbs that they collect from the mountains or from the nature.
他们就是用这个纯天然的这些草本的这些
They say that all of these colors are actually extracted from natural herbs. They will put the cotton and some of the herbs inside a large pot, and they boil out the pot, and then we can see all of these woolen pieces will be dyed. So there will not be any chemical elements in this carpet.
Renk verme işlemi ne kadar sürüyor ortalama?
Sizin boyayacağınız rengin tonuna göre ne kadar çok kaynatırsanız o kadar tonu koyu oluyor. Mesela kırmızı yapıyoruz. Biraz boyasını fazla atıyoruz, yani kökünü fazla atıyoruz. Biraz da fazla kaynatıyoruz.
Açık kırmızı için
biraz kaynatıyoruz.
15 dakika,
10 dakika kaynatıyoruz
10 dakika.
ama şey için mesela daha koyu kırmızı için 1 saat 2 saat kaynatıyoruz.
He says that it's depend on what color do you want to receive. So if you want to have a light color, it takes approximately 10 or 15 minutes, but after the boiling.
Kesinlikle halı olduktan sonra bu boyamalar kesinlikle renk vermez. Sadece asit falan dökmeniz lazım ya da çok uzun süreli güneşe maruz kalmanız.
Or if you want to have a dark color, it takes sometimes 1 hour. He says that, but definitely you cannot see that the color has damage after that, unless you put under the sun. You put the carpet under the sun, and then maybe it might have some damage. But for years you can use this color.
Bir de burada sadece gül boyuyoruz biz. Gül halılar için. Pamuk ve ipek için ayrı.
Okay.
那么这个天然获取的这个颜色。
And for a lot of these pigments that was got from the natural herbs, if you're not putting it under the sun, so we can keep this kind of carpet and the color for years.
He will show us 100 years old a carpet inside the tent.
Film de var.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay. Gidebilir miyiz, bize gösterebilir misin?
这个先生呢，他说他会给我们展示。
So this gentleman said that he will show us a carpet that has been kept for 150 years. Let's take a look.
Şey,
150 years。
yaklaşık olarak
100
yıl.
mi?
100 yıl.
100 years.
这条地毯呢，刚才说错了，这条地毯。
For this carpet, I just made the mistake, and for this one, it's actually being kept for 100 years. And you can see the color, the red, are still very bright. But for the other areas, maybe a little bit fading away. But for the red one, it's very bright. But for the carpet itself, it has been kept for 100 years. For this traditional dyeing technique, it is very impressive.
So all the carpets are made of wool, right?
Bütün kilimler, halılar yünle mi yapıldı?
Evet, buradakiler hepsi yüz.
All of them.
Şöyle ipek karışımı da var ama
There's some with mixed with the silk, like wool and silk, but mostly all of them is from wool.
OK。那么这边的地毯呢，大多数都是
So
羊
for
毛
the
制
carpets
的，
that
有
was
些呢也会
displayed
混合
here,
一些那个
most of them are made of wool, but some of them are mixed with silk. And another one,
100 years old.
这一片大约也是有100年的历史。
this one also have a 100 years of history.
先让大家看到这个，这是一个包，
The color are very bright. Well, it is not a carpet, it's a handbag.
就很清晰的能看到这个是青色的，这个灰的，红色的。
So you can see the differences of the color very clearly. The purple one, the green one, the red one.
那么这个包呢，也已经有100年的历史了，现在还
So for this handbag, it actually also have a 100-year history.
very clear. Yeah.
And he says this is the original color actually, when they don't dye to another color.
100 yıllık olmasına rağmen hala renkler canlı bak.
He says even though it's 100 years old carpet, still is very
Yeah.
vivid.
Bak bu çok az solmuş. Bunu hafiften şey yaparsanız bakın hala canlı renkler. Bakın hala canlı.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very nice, very
And-
good, amazing. And this making the carpet. 我们现在看到这个眼前的这个就是它这个
This one is another piece of carpet. And this is the equipment to knit or weave the carpet. So this lady will demonstrate how it works. You can see this handmade carpet is very soft with around 1.5 to 2 centimeter thickness.
From that to that,
Yıkanacak.
they will wash.
Gönyesi alınır.
它每打一个结就要把它这个线给割下来。
So she has to make some knots at the beginning
砸紧。
and then hammer on the handle of the spinning machine.
大家看这个地毯是非常精美的，像下面这个做完，
Very exquisite pattern.
大约会变成上面这个样子。
So after we finish making the carpet, and then it will be look like this. So all of these patterns are very clear.
So, can you tell us how much time it takes to make one carpet like this next to
Bu
finish this one?
şekilde yapmak, bitirmek yani hazır bir kilimi bitirmek kaç zaman alıyor? Yani
Bir insan yaklaşık 20 günde çıkarır bu ebatta. 1 metrekare halıyı.
okay, like a 1 meter carpet, one person can finish in 20 days.
那原来这个手工地毯它是非常耗时耗力的一个
So-
工作，就是
Actually takes a lot of time and energy to make the handmade carpet. For a 1 meter carpet, it takes one person for 20 days to make it.
thank you.
How much is the
Kartı
carpet?
neden veriyor?
Ben
Bu çekim yayınlanacak herhalde ülkelerinde değil mi?
Onu ben halledeceğim.
Yani mailimize atsınlar.
Okay.
Tamam.
Okay. Thank you.
Çok teşekkür
Thank you so
ederim.
much. Right, guys. 图案都非常的，还挺有童趣。
And we can see this vivid pattern of the carpet. And for this one, the gray color is actually the original color of the wool. Let's take a look on other tents.
那么是这个今天我们参观的这个少数民族文化和运动节呢是。
And today, we are at the cultural festival for ethnic minorities. It is the third time that Turkish government organized this event.
75万的游客，那么今年呢，
Last year, this event has attracted around 750,000 visitors, and this year, their goal is to attract over 1 million visitors to this event.
那么我们现在看到的这边，大家看这边，帐篷这边呢，都是这个土耳其他们那些原来的。
And along the tent, we can see some ethnic minorities are showcasing some of their lifestyle and some traditional artifacts. For example, we just take a look on the silk railing and the handmade copperware, as well as the handmade woolen carpet. For all of these handicrafts, they're very important in the traditional culture in Turkey. And all of this technology require very skillful techniques. And then we just see that for this kind of carpet, they're using the natural pigment for dyeing. If we just use it at your household, it can be kept as long as 100 years. And we just saw some of them. Some of the carpets have been kept for over 100 years. Now let's see one of the traditional sports in Turkey. That is a wrestling sports. And for this area is the archery site. And we know that for the grassland nationalities, they're very skillful in horse riding. Except for that, they're also very good at archery. And massive people have been taken part in the archery sports. But now we are heading to the space for the wrestling. Speak of the olive oil wrestling, actually it was originated back in the Ottoman Empire. At that time, during breaks, some of the soldiers would like to do the olive oil wrestling just for entertainment and relaxing. And for that wrestling, it takes around like 40 minutes and no one wins. So every year, the Turkey organized the traditional wrestling events in order to commemorate the soldiers from the Ottoman Empire. Now we are arriving at the site for the wrestling. This is the junior group. So we can see all of these athletes, they are wearing the leather pants. So each one of the players have their own pants. The reason why we call it olive oil wrestling is because they will put some olive oil on their body. So the skin will be very smooth and the wrestling becomes more difficult. Today is the last day for the wrestling. So all of these athletes, they are actually elites from the competition. For this wrestling competition, there is no time limit. Until one player was defeated by the other. Now this kind of wrestling is very popular. In order to save time, in current days, the rules has been changed. So the judges will add a timeline for the wrestling. So if you can't attach the shoulder of the player onto the ground, this will end the whole game. Now we can see it's almost there for this group. So they're trying really hard to hold their body. So we can see their back, their body actually shining under the sunlight because they have put a lot of olive oil during the wrestling game. Because they have been put the olive oil on their body, it is very difficult for them to use their power. So sometimes they will drag each other's pants in order to defeat the contestant. So we can see are very competitive in this game. These two boys are trying to defeat the other. It seems like it is the end of the competition. And today we have visited some of the tents to understand the lifestyle of the traditional Turkish people, and also we just experienced this wrestling game. And we can see the Turkish government has played a very key role in promoting their own culture. I was thinking that in the past few decades, Turkey has been migrated from the Central Asia to the current state. I believe they must be integrated some of the culture from the other nations or countries. So that makes me think, how can we better balance the modernization as well as the traditional culture? So I really want to pose this question to all of you and welcome your comments on that. Now we have come to the end of our live streaming. Thank you. Please stay tuned to other live streaming from CCTV and CGTN. Thank you.